Should we ever trust AI-generated research? Now, for some of you, the answer might be an immediate no. But the truth is, this question is becoming harder to ignore because AI-generated research is everywhere. We're living through a moment where knowledge work has never been cheaper. Generative AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini are freely available and widely popular. And with that comes a tidal wave of what I can only describe as research slop. Some of it looks brilliant on the surface, well written, polished, articulate. So polished, in fact, that it inspires a sort of faith-like confidence. We read it and just believe it. Worse still, many of us are starting to pass this slop onto customers and clients, often without verifying if any of it is actually true. And now we're seeing real consequences. High-profile professionals and businesses are beginning to get burned by this blind trust in AI. Let me walk you through 3 serious cases where AI hallucinations caused reputational and financial damage. First, Deloitte, Australia. They were commissioned to produce a consulting report for the Australian government's Department of Employment and Workplace Relations. But here's what happened next. The report contained multiple errors, including a fabricated quotes and references to non-existing academic papers. Deloitte later admitted that generative AI had been used during the drafting process. The government had to publish a corrected version of the report, and Deloitte agreed to repay a portion of the fee. The whole episode has been since described as a wake-up call for those using AI in professional consulting. Next up, another example, but this time in the legal world, was Butler Snow, LLP, a major US law firm. In July 2024, a federal judge disqualified 3 of the firm's attorneys after they had submitted court documents that included entirely fabricated legal citations. These citations, it turned out, had been hallucinated by AI. The attorneys admitted to using AI for drafting and failing to verify the outputs. The judge called their conduct tantamount to bad faith, and these were partners at the firm. And finally, in the UK, in 2023, the High Court of England and Wales issued a formal warning to lawyers over AI-generated hallucinations. In a high-stakes case against Qatar National Bank, worth around 90 million, 18 out of the 45 cited cases were found to be entirely fictitious. Let me say that again. Nearly half of the case law cited simply didn't exist. If you rely on AI-generated content without rigorous checks, it may come back to bite you later. And in industries like law, consulting, and government, these aren't just typos. They can result in reputational damage, lost revenue, and professional sanctions. But here's the thing. Despite these risks, I still use generative AI every day. Why? Because the productivity gains are undeniable. These tools are powerful, sometimes too powerful, which is exactly the problem. So the real question isn't, should we stop using AI? It's, how can we trust AI without being fooled by it? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Hallucinations are part of how large language models work. They're trained to sound plausible, not to be right. That's why they're so persuasive. You get beautifully worded answers that feel correct until you check the details. Granted, over the years, models have improved and they do hallucinate less, but there are still things that slip through the cracks. And let's be honest, reviewing generative AI slop is time consuming and can be extremely painful, and many just don't do it. So what can we do? This is the question that pushed me to build a tool of my own, a simple AI fact checker. Here's how it works. It takes any AI generated text, breaks it down into individual claims, then cross-references those claims against reliable sources online. It's fast, lightweight, and doesn't require any coding knowledge. Let me show you how it works using the most powerful model available today, GPT-5 Pro. Some people argue that GPT-5 Pro is better than deep research for long-form tasks. So let's put it to the test. I'm going to ask it to write a short consulting paper on the AI bubble. Then we'll run the output through the fact checker live. So I've got ChatGPT-5 Pro open, and I'm going to ask it to write a consulting paper on the generative AI bubble. So what I have here in the prompt is write a consulting paper on the generative AI bubble, ensure that all claims are verified, presented in a professional style akin to the top consulting firms. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And, for those of you that aren't familiar with ChatGPT-5 Pro, it's the subscription you get for $200 a month, and it provides you with their top model. So I think this is their most intelligent model that's currently available. It can take quite a long time to reason and think. So we're going to pause this and we'll come back to the paper once it's delivered. The report has just finished generating, and you can see here it took around 15 minutes for that request. We have a report outlined here with all of the citations, and at first glance it looks quite sensible. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab this report and put it into the fact checker tool and see what that comes out with. Right, so we have generated our consulting paper. Let's start a fact check exercise. So all we do here is navigate to the fact checker, and we have the option here to paste that consulting paper in the text box here. You can also upload it as a PDF if you want to. There's around 2,000 words in here, and then we can just kick off the fact check by saying start fact check. So you can see what that does here. That starts by kicking off a job and then working on decomposing that document into its claims. So this might take 10 to 15 minutes. I'll pause it here and we can reconvene once the fact check exercise is complete to review the results. All right, so it looks like the fact check has finished running. Just to show you, when we kicked this off, we kicked it off at 11:18 p.m. and finished running at 11:27 p.m. So that's approximately 10 minutes. And we have quite a good score here, 9.3 out of 10, which is pretty good, especially for AI generated content. So let's see what we have. We have 14 claims in total. 13 of those claims were supported with evidence that the fact checker could find on the internet, and one is mixed. So let's explore the mixed one. So the mixed one is Microsoft disclosed AI contributed 16 percentage points to Azure growth last quarter. So what's the mix here? So the rationale is Reuters reported AI contributed 16 percentage points to Azure growth in fiscal quarter 3 2025. So it says Azure grew 33% year on year. For the quarter commonly described as Q4 financial year 2025, Microsoft's release and Reuters coverage do not disclose a 16-point AI contribution, creating ambiguity depending on which quarter is referenced. All right, so let's dig into this a little bit. We'll first have a look at the claim. So I'm just going to grab this out of here. Let's grab the claim and see in what context it's made. And we'll navigate back to our report. This is Microsoft disclosed AI contribution 16 percentage points to Azure growth last quarter, and we have the Azure growth at 39% year on year. So this is just a statement that's made here. That's fine. Let's first pull up the Reuters article. So what does Reuters say? So Reuters is saying that Microsoft said revenue at its Azure cloud division rose 33% in the third quarter, ended March 31. So that's a bit weird because the third quarter, in my eyes, should end in September, not in March. That would be the first quarter. So that looks like a typo there. Exceeding estimates of 29.7% according to Visible Alpha. AI contributed 16 percentage points to the growth, up from 13 points in the previous quarter. So there is a little bit of ambiguity here. It says AI contributed 16 percentage points, but this seems to be referring to the first quarter, I believe, or the third quarter, depending on how you're reading this. But there is certainly some kind of typo or mistake here, and the fact checkers probably picked that up. So the Reuters article is suggesting that the 16 percentage points is attributed to that 33% growth. So of that 33% growth, AI was 16%. That's what it's saying here. Okay, so that's fine. So that's the Reuters article. So what does our fact checker say? So fact checker says that there is also a quote that says it's Q4 financial year 2025 and a 16-point growth as well. So let's see if we can pick that out. Let's see where that's come from. This time I'm going to see if we can jump into a Microsoft source. So we've got news.microsoft. Let's have a look here and see if there's anything related to the growth. Okay, so we seem to have some financial information here. Let's see if we can find that 16% figure. It seems to be a lot of 16% figures, so let's see if we can find the 39%. Okay, so again, revenue in Intelligent Cloud was 29.9 billion and increased 26%. Server and product cloud services, 27%, driven by Azure and other cloud services, growth of 39%. So that's where the 39% is coming from. Where does the 16% align? So we have some stuff about net income here, but I'm not sure that's the same percentage. let's look. So, I mean, this just goes to show how difficult it is to actually fact check this AI stuff, and hence it's good to have a tool to aid you to do that. Let's see if we can find that 16%. 16%, where is it mentioned? It's mentioned anywhere. So I can't see anything that directly ties it to that 33, or sorry, to that 39% figure that was quoted in the consulting article. So far, we've seen something that ties it to the 33%, but that's actually fairly ambiguous, and it seems to have some typos in there. Let's review some of the other sources to see if anything is picked up. So we looked at Reuters already. Let's look at investing.com. So I can't find anywhere referencing the 39% in here. And the Star, let's have a look at this one. Is there anything referencing that 39%? I can't find anything referencing that 39% in here either. Let's jump back out and let's look at the final link provided. Let's have a look. So quite often I'm seeing that 33%. But here again, it's saying that the AI contributed 16 percentage points, and it's saying 33% in the third quarter ended March 31st. So that aligns with the Reuters source. Yeah, so I think categorically that seems to be mixed. If I'm being honest, it's not clear where that 16 percentage points to Azure growth is coming from. The consulting paper itself that we generated references a 39%, but it's not completely clear. So I think that's a pretty good result, and it's a pretty good spot to pick out. Whether you would remove that from the consulting paper or not would be down to you, but I would probably alter it and remove the 39% to avoid confusion. Maybe take the statement out itself, if I wasn't completely sure. But yes, it is ambiguous, and it feels like there might have been some kind of typo or misunderstanding in the reporting. I would suggest that many of us have mixed feelings around generative AI. On the one hand, we've got this incredible technology capable of things that not long ago would have felt like science fiction. But with it comes a whole set of new challenges. Rising competition, a flood of AI-generated slop, higher expectations across every industry. Whether you're a worker or an entrepreneur, the pressure is real. And in many ways, if you're not using AI strategically, you risk being outpaced by those that are. That's why, for those of us using AI professionally, slop detection isn't optional, it's essential. My approach, a layered one. By using tools like the fact check I demonstrated earlier, you give yourself a crucial second line of defense, a safeguard against hallucinations and confidently wrong content. Because in the world we're heading into, it's not just about using AI, it's about using it well.